The return of two new Dokkan Festival TURs, but which one should you pick with your hard-earned red coins? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We're back for another Dokkan Battle video. We have a new Dokkan Festival banner on both JP and Global Dokkan, and we are answering that age-old question: which returning unit is worth your 400 red coins? After all, there are several good units that have returned on this banner, mostly androids, but we got Kale making her first appearance back here on Global Dokkan, STR 17 and 17 as well. Now this is interesting because these guys were supposed to return on the Super Trunks banner whenever that ends up happening. So let's go ahead, let's take a look at both of these returning TURs and determine which one you should grab. After all, both of these guys came at, really bad time for us global players, right? Kale came right before the worldwide celebration, coming off the tail end of the anniversary, and STR 17 and 17 came right before the anniversary. So most of you players probably skipped these guys. So let's take a look at the Kale first. So she is Universe 6 Transformation Boost, Category Key 3, HP Attack and Defense 170%. She gets an additional Attack and Defense 30% for characters who also belong on Universal Survival or Full Power category. Her Super Attack is greatly raising attack for the turn. She causes immense damage to the enemy on that Super Attack. She gets Attack and Defense 160%, an additional Attack and Defense 60%, and a high chance of launching an additional Super Attack when performing a Super Attack. She reduces damage received 20% within the same turn of each attack performed, up to 60%. She also gets an additional Attack and Defense 160% and a great chance of launching an additional Super Attack when there's another Universe 6 category ally attacking in the same turn. She can transform into Super Saiyan 2 Kale simply by having an ally who includes Cauliflower on the team, starting from the 4th turn from the battle, or after 6 turns. So this could be turn 3 or after turn 4. It really depends on when she shows up and how many supers she does. So definitely, it's pretty easy and pretty quick to pull off with her how many supers, especially if you have a dupe of her and invest some additionals. But even the basic additionals that come off of AGL work pretty well for her as well. Once transformed into Super Saiyan 2, she's got 100% defense for 6 turns. She has attack and defense 200% and gets an additional 120% attacking and launches 2 guaranteed additional attacks, each of which has a 30% chance of becoming a super attack when performing a super attack. She has a 50% chance to guard all attacks and gets an additional defense 60% and attack 60% for 3 turns after receiving an attack. She has an additional 160 and guards all attacks when there's another universe category ally in the same turn. So really, for the time being, until we get more Universe 6 allies, the way you play her is basically run her next to the AGL, Kale, and Cauliflower for 3 or 4 turns, depending on when she shows up. And then once you transform, you keep 1 as the Berserk Kale in slot 2 and 1 as the Super Saiyan 2 Kale in slot 3, or in slot 1. Basically the ideal way to run them, and by that point you should be taking down whatever enemy is in front of you, and it works pretty well. Just the hard thing with her is running her with Universe 6 allies, because basically the only other good one is the AGL, Kale, and Cauliflower, and even then that's like a turn or 2 after their first appearance, right? You got to give it a moment because they do need time to build their defense. So great unit, but she's not the only one showing up here. We also have the 17 and 17. They are joined forces, target Goku, category key 3, HP attack and defense 170%, plus an additional HP attack and defense 30% for characters who are also on the androids category. They are infinitely raising attack and raise defense for 1 turn. While in the joined forces form, they get key 2, attack and defense 100%, an additional 1 key and attack and defense 70% when all allies attacking in the same turn are extreme class. They get an additional attack and defense 70% when performing a super attack and launch an additional attack that has a medium chance of becoming a super attack. as well as launching an additional super attack when there's a superclass enemy for 4 turns from the entry turn. They also have an additional critical hit chance and evading and a chance of evading enemies' attack, including super attack, 17% with each attack performed, right? So ideally, the more additionals they launch, the higher their dodge chances, the safer they are. So you definitely want to invest additionals into these guys. Maybe a little bit of dodge, maybe some crit, right? They do want that crit, but it's not as important, as you'll see when we get into the next form. So after the 5th turn, if you are below 70% HP, you can go ahead and transform into the Super 17. At that point, he gains Key 3, attack and defense 170%, and gets an additional 170% attack when performing a super attack. He reduces damage received by 34% for 4 turns from his entry turn, and gets an additional 17 damage reduction after that. He also launches an additional attack that has a high chance of becoming a super attack within the same turn after receiving an attack. Also has an additional 17% with each attack received, up to 170%. He gets a medium chance of forming a critical hit when there's a superclass enemy, and absorbs Ki Blast directed at the character, and recovers 34% of the damage absorbed if he is below 70% HP at the start of turn. He also foresees enemy super attack when HP is 34% or less. So these guys are an absolute monster once you hit the Super 17 form. The problem is, when they are in base form, they are slot 2, slot 3 units with no real defensive tech except for that ability to dodge. So events where there are AoEs or they can't dodge really hurt them, because the defense they gain on super just isn't enough. On top of that, right, the additional attacks they need to gain the additional dodge are kind of locked behind superclass enemies, right, which we don't really have too many of except for a few of the Divine Will stages. To add on to that, same thing when he's in the Super 17 form. His critical hit chance is when he is facing a superclass enemy, which, you know, isn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things, right? He's doing a whole lot else, right? He's very powerful once he gets fully built up, and he's got that damage reduction for some protection. He can pretty much tank hits from every major boss, right? We tested him at 55%, and he worked out quite well there. It's just getting him to this point is the difficult part. I feel that if we had more superclass fights that were longer, he might see some greater usage. So the question is, compared to what else is on the banner, which of these guys should you choose, right? We've been over the Gammas before. The Gammas still have some use. We have the only other unit available for purchase, right? This is actually a pretty good 7-unit banner. Like, everyone here can have use. So between the 17 and Kale, it's a tough one for who you should pick. I would say out of them, I would go with the Kale. We are more likely, I think, to see Transformation Boost, Universe 6, and Universal Survival Saga buffs in the near future, I think, than we are GT bosses or more androids buffs, right? Which is really what he wants. So I'm going to go with Kale is probably your best choice for coins, right? 400 red coins, if you got them sitting around because you skipped Kale, then this is probably the TUR to use it on. Though it should be noted, right, if you're only sitting on 400 or 500 coins, you ought to be saving for these guys here. If you're somebody who missed out on the 8-year anniversary LRs, they are coming back on the 25th of this month. You can see in the in-game news there is a change of banner. They're trying to play it a secret, like we don't know what it is, but we know what it is. It will be this banner, and it will feature these 2 characters. So this will be your chance to pick them up for 500 red coins. But if you've already got them and you don't plan on buying dupes with them, then, you know, Kale is a good choice. Also worthy of consideration is if you're somebody who missed out on these guys here, the LRs from the worldwide celebration. You know, if you're on global, there's a good chance we could be waiting till July before you get a chance to pick these guys up. So, I mean, while it's not super imperative, you know, depending on how much summoning you plan on doing between now and then, it may be worth kind of holding off on those coins for the time being, at least until you feel comfortable with the amount you have that you can purchase both of these guys or one of these guys if you were missing them. So guys, that is the video. That is my recommendation for who you should choose with the red coins on this banner. Kale is probably number 1 priority out of all of the available ones, but it is worthy of note that there are better things on the horizon that you should probably use your coins for if you happen to be missing them. So guys, that's it for the video. if you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, let me know who did you end up picking up with your red coins. Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.